comes the devil. Oh, here comes the devil. Oh, here comes the devil.
Oh, the devil with the devil, says I.
Shh, look out for the devil. Look out for the devil. Look out for the devil.
Oh, the devil with the devil, says I. You're so afraid of old man Satan. Now, why don't you stop your hesitating? You're gonna be a long time dead, so the devil with the devil, says I. You're always giving me the dickens, telling me that life's no easy pickings. But just as long as I have fun, why, the devil with the devil, says I. You can have your social teas and bingo for your fun, but the things I like to do, you stop me one by one. Now even if you make me stronger, that ain't gonna make me live no longer. So even if I go to shh, the devil with the devil, says I.
Look out for the devil, look out for the devil.
Oh, the devil with the devil, says I.
Welcome everybody to the Leo Zagami Show with Leo Zagami, and Christy, of course, is no longer with us because, like I told you the last time, she's now starting her own new business because she has to, of course, work as we are facing troubles here in Trump's economy, which is not that booming economy, that golden age that we were promised, that's for sure. But aside from that, of course, we wish you the best for your festivities, for your new year. I have to thank a few sponsors that Christy courteously wrote down: Sean Rose, Malgo Rosata Minta, and also Daniel Estes. Thank you so much for believing in us. As I told you last week, we will be starting with a new series from the beginning of 2025, a new series, Illuminati News, will feature elements from my books, as well, of course, as the occasional current news analysis. But we will be changing around this format because in 2026, Leo Zagami celebrates 20 years of Illuminati Confessions. It was the fall of 2006 when I did my first show here on the internet, when I started my small blog Illuminati Confessions. It quickly became very popular. People like David Icke started to post my articles. Then at the time we had this great show called The Arctic Beacon on GCN network. We had, of course, a very different scene from what we have today. But I was already there denouncing the problems we might face in the future. And today, like I said, we want to thank, first of all, the sponsors, because they make it possible for us to carry on.
Did you do the sponsors? Did you do the sponsors?
Yeah, I think I did, actually. But you want to remember who they are, Chris?
Sure.
Thank you, Christy.
You're welcome.
How you doing? How was your Christmas? I want to show the roast that we did here. It was fantastic, guys.
I can't being front of all the bullshit and everything, so I'm just taking a break.
Yeah, Chrissy's taking a break, so no
I'll
worries.
be back, but I'm taking a break.
Yeah, she's taking a break. She's taking a break. In the meantime, this is the roast, Angus beef. Again, we didn't go to a restaurant, any fancy
I'm
restaurant.
kind of his content creator now, so
What are you
it's
doing?
one of my new jobs.
Yeah, content creator.
Yeah.
Ah, okay. Content of what? Fashion, yeah.
No, your Instagram.
Okay. Okay.
I
Perfect.
don't have any fashion line.
No, you don't
I'm
have.
just gonna be selling my clothes on probably eBay.
Okay.
That's
Whatever. In any case, we're finding new ways to survive in Trump's economy. And today, of course, we had our pizza. This is the pizza today, guys, with salami. Wow. Great salami and a great pizza, I tell you. Perfect. You can actually do your own. Find the recipe to make your own pizza, your fresh pasta, everything in this book, Zagami Family's Cookbook. You find it on Amazon. This is full, as a book full with great pics, by the way, that Christy took of her own recipes, and so many great recipes, all in one book, Zagami Family Cookbook. Authentic Italian cooking. And I want to thank also all those people who are making of this book a bestseller, The Rise and Fall of a Frankist Monster. This is a very important book, guys. I'm glad to say the book is going rather well, but Amazon deliberately is trying to find a way to get us 4 stars rather than 5. I never saw any review below 5 stars, but somebody must have left a 4-star review because they don't materialize on their own. Or maybe Amazon is sabotaging us. Who knows? But keep on supporting us with the purchase of this book, and the million files that are coming from the Epstein files demonstrate that when Pam Bondi said there is nothing else to see here, there is a lot more to see. Absolutely, there's a lot more to see. And I must say one thing, that what we have seen this week has confirmed everything that I've been discussing in my book. Les Wexner's role, for example. But not only that, I want to show you, for example, this article on the Gateway Pundit that makes it pretty clear here. Let's see. Watch. I'm going to show you. This is quite incredible that everything in my book is correct and is actually anticipating all the content of the files that are coming out. In this article, they are wondering what kind of cult, and it's not a gym, the temple on top of Little St. James. I've discussed that, and as you know, in my book, I also draw the parallels with the bathhouse in Aleppo, Syria, inspiration for Epstein's temple. This is what the Gateway Pundit is saying in this article that was published a few days ago. Quite incredible, because as you know, in my book, and then here inside the temple, the bookshelf with 2 columns that they say are reminiscent of the Masonic Joachim and Boaz. And on top of that, there is also something else that I want to show you, which nobody has yet noticed too much. A ceiling mural depicting the mythical images of the constellations was present in Jeffrey Epstein's temple. Okay? Now, this is, of course, representations that come from astrology, from the zodiac. But what people might not know is that the zodiac is used in Freemasonry as an alphabet. Let me show you here. Watch. Watch this. English alphabet in the zodiac. So if you went through all the zodiac signs depicted on the ceiling of Jeffrey Epstein Temple, will you eventually find a hidden message? Because, like I said, there is an alphabet, English alphabet in the zodiac wheel. And the Freemasons know all about it. This is a page from a book called The Language of the Gods by B.R. Taylor. So these are very interesting things that we learn. And if you want to continue supporting us, you can do it with GoFundMe, you can do it with Cash App. And next year we have Illuminati News, a new format coming up. Yes, guys, a new format. And I tell you, I'm preparing some great material for this new format, aside from the fact that we will be going methodically through all my teachings in the 12 volumes of my confessions. So get ready for this new series that is about to kickstart here from the Leo Zagami show. Well, somebody said they may have been practicing planetary magic. Well, I would say that all kind of magic, when it's done in the correct form, it's planetary, because, you know, every invocation or evocation is done usually following the planets and the stars. That's something that I think is planetary magic in particular. It's, of course, always connected to forms of different forms of magic, and the grimoires in particular, they go by the time of the day, the minute, for then evoking a specific planetary spirit and so on. Who knows? They might, though, have been also a hidden message, and that might be also an interesting discovery. Like I said, this week there has been a lot of Epstein, especially since there is more and more of these documents that are coming out, and a million other to follow. So we have a lot to learn from those archives, from those files, but not as much as you will learn by reading this book, which instead gives you the correct religious, cultural background behind Jeffrey Epstein and his associates. And this book, guys, at the moment is being received very well, and there is no debunking of this book possible and imaginable. So people are simply acknowledging the validity of my thesis, at least. Okay, let's move further, because the topic of the day might have been, for people who are watching me now, what is the connection between the Necronomicon, Trump, and the Age of Chaos magic? Well, there is a connection. First of all, the Necronomicon. Let's talk about this Necronomicon, because the Necronomicon in reality is a fictional book. It's something that was that came out of the fantasy of H.P. Lovecraft, but it's possibly based on the Picatrix, which is a very interesting black magic text. Any case, Lovecraft created the fictional forbidden grimoire called the Necronomicon. It was first mentioned in a story he published in 1922 called The Hound. Actually, the book was published in 1924. He wrote it in 1922. And in this, The Hound, he then mentions that there is also an author for this mysterious Necronomicon, an author that he had already mentioned, though, earlier in a book called The Nameless City from 1921. Now, Lovecraft described this book as the creation of Al-Asif, or the creation of a guy who was imaginary. However, I will now make you understand how this Necronomicon manifested in the occult and how it became really the very important text for chaos magic that started to develop from the 1970s. Now, a lot of the people who helped making the Necronomicon, making the Necronomicon a reality, because then the Necronomicon started to be mentioned in films, on TV, in pop culture, the magic of Cthulhu, the magic of the esoteric order of the Dagon, which is also a fictional malevolent cult that Lovecraft mentions in The Shadow over Innsmouth from 1931, seemed to become a reality which manifests after through chaos magic. Chaos magic emerges in England in the 1970s as part of a wider neo-pagan and esoteric subculture. There is, of course, also the role of the followers of Aleister Crowley, which is central to the development of this Necronomicon, which is then kind of promoted as almost being a real book, actually as being a real book, and people believe it's a real book. People who, of course, don't know the story, because it's a secret grimoire which starts to become more and more popular as it's published by various people, which, of course, have since the early 70s onwards promoted it as a real text. You know, they said, yes, H.P. Lovecraft talks about it, but it is actually a true grimoire. And like I said, at times, the myth, the legend of something becomes a reality if there is enough people that want to give life to this reality of sorts. Now, in 1973, the first copy of the Necronomicon, which picks up, of course, on elements of H.P. Lovecraft's publication and expands it, is a collective called Abdul Al-Zared, and they publish this book authored by Al-Azif. They published this book claiming it's the real Necronomicon. After that, in 1978, there will be a other attempt to publish the Necronomicon claiming it's a real book. The various attempts that will become popular are actually all from followers of, like I said, Aleister Crowley. And even if Aleister Crowley probably never met H.P. Lovecraft, I say probably because there is definitely they had definitely at least one friend in common, and there is a lot of people that say that there was some kind of connection. H.P. Lovecraft wasn't really a magician, wasn't really believing in anything magic, but let's say H.P. Lovecraft and Aleister Crowley had a lot of interest in common, and later on, when his followers started to pick on H.P. Lovecraft's work, they will manifest it as something real. Now, who was H.P. Lovecraft? Let's go and see this character, because he is one of the biggest weirdos of American literary history. Lovecraft in 1934. Here he is. He was born in Providence, Rhode Island. He will die in Providence, Rhode Island. So he lived all his life in the smallest states in the United States, which, by the way, recently had also something happening in the news, as you know. He was a prominent writer of weird horror, fantasy, and science fiction, and he created this Cthulhu mythos. This Cthulhu mythos, this Lovecraftian horror, included, of course, the elements that will manifest the Necronomicon from a fictional grimoire mentioned in his works into something more real. The work of Lovecraft was rooted in a particular belief, which is called cosmicism, and it's a name given to the literary philosophy that Lovecraft developed in his fiction. It's basically involves occult phenomena like astral projection, alien, and also alien stuff of the weirder kind. I mean, the different alien races and alien monstrosities that you see in science fiction often can be attributed to H.P. Lovecraft. I would say there is a bunch of Lovecraft in contemporary TV and film sci-fi stuff, starting from a while ago. So you have films that are directly based on H.P. Lovecraft's work, and then you have films that are inspired by his monsters, by his creation, by his alien extra-dimensional creations of sorts. I would say that even the whole series Alien has references that are clearly Lovecraftian, and his books are very, very important, of course, in the realm of science fiction. But what people tend to forget is that then there is people who took very seriously his writings, brought them to the next level, brought them to manifest in the real rituals that were picked up within that new phenomenon known as chaos magic. So, like I said, H.P. Lovecraft and Crowley never met, but they had a lot of things that connected them, and also some friends in common. Figures like Sonia Green or places like Haverhill. It's unproven that there was, I repeat, any real connection, because Crowley was an occultist, a real life occultist, while instead Lovecraft seemed to be more of a pragmatist person who dwelt in the fantasy realm of strange magic, if we want to define it in that way. Lovecraft also had members of his family who were Freemasons. Some people, like Colin Wilson, said that actually the father was involved in an Egyptian rite form of Freemasonry, or some others say the grandfather. But he himself, H.P. Lovecraft, was never a member of secret societies. He was too rational. His views contradicted those of the occult. And he explored instead the figures, I guess, like Madame Blavatsky or all the occult trends with a lot of curiosity. But he always remained detached from being part of that esoteric world. Like I said, his grandfather, some say, was definitely a Mason, the grandfather, some say even the father. This detail is a detail that Lovecraft used in his story, the fact that his grandfather was a Mason, and he created, maybe because of that, some form of confusion regarding his own involvement. Who is the guy who launches the Necronomicon? Because the Necronomicon, like I said, makes its first appearance on its own in the early 70s, but there was another guy who will launch the Necronomicon using a pseudonym of Simon. The book will be published as Simon Necronomicon. The Simon Necronomicon is a grimoire attributed to Simon, who is in reality Peter Levenda. Peter Levenda is, of course, connected is a member of the Ordo Templi Orientis. So the Ordo Templi Orientis and the materials included in this edition that came out in 1977 included allusions to the writing of H.P. Lovecraft, Aleister Crowley, and of course the story of the Mad Arab, attributing the actual creation of the Necronomicon to a mysterious Mad Arab figure, which was Al-Azif, an Arabic that was described by H.P. Lovecraft in his work. But there is some problems here with the reality of this history. However, the fictional history of the birth of this Necronomicon is connected to these Lovecraftian entities from the Cthulhu mythos. These Lovecraftian entities like Yog Sothoth and other these great ancient ones that seem to be appearing in this mysterious text that he claimed was originally written in Yemen, and of course all this it's connected to the mystery of the Middle East. However, like I said, there is various attributions of who generated the first also European edition. They claim it was John Dee. In the case of this edition, of course, with Peter Levenda, it had a lot of success at the time, and it was immediately copied by another group of people who decided to write their own edition. I will show you now, if I can, the various editions. This other group of people, always followers of Aleister Crowley, but they were based in England. At the same time, Kenneth Grant had also picked up on the work of H.P. Lovecraft and integrated inside his own work. Kenneth Grant, for a period, was the secretary of Aleister Crowley. But it was another group of people that after Peter Levenda Simon, as he signed himself, came together and put together a new version. I'm going to show you the cover of these various versions. So let me see if I can show you the cover here, which is, this is the version that will be published always at the end of the 70s, in the second half of the 70s in England. Here, the Book of Dead Names, the Necronomicon, edited by this George Hay, introduced by Colin Wilson, and researched by Robert Turner and David Langford. This was basically the second attempt, but an attempt made with Colin Wilson, who was a very distinguished figure. He had also written an important biography on Aleister Crowley. He was connected to the real literary heirs of Aleister Crowley in England. And it seems, by the way, also apparently, the participation of the guy who in 1973, Leon Sprague the Champ, published this version, which was the first version of the Necronomicon to appear. I repeat, the Necronomicon is a fictional book. I have even somewhere here or I don't know where, but somewhere here in my collection, a version of the Necronomicon, which is even attributed to the Vatican, that was allegedly found by an Italian historian in the Vatican. And it's, of course, fake, but it was published as a real version. Now, let me see if I can find it. Here, okay. This is Necronomicon by Pietro Pizzarri. It claims, and this is from a very serious publishing company, Athanor, which is, by the way, owned by Freemasons, and it is usually publishes real stuff. Here it says that this edition of the Necronomicon was found within the Vatican. They even give a document to assert that this edition was found in the Vatican. Is always ascribed to Al-Azif, whose real name was Abdul Arazrak, who was born in the year 1730-1738, and whose original manuscript is at the base of this Necronomicon. However, it's all fake, because every single edition of the Necronomicon from the 17th onwards is simply an attempt to create a legitimacy and a legend around the Necronomicon as a real book rather than a fictional book. If today we go, let's see, on Wikipedia, this is, let me show you. This is the Necronomicon on Wikipedia, also referred to as the Book of the Dead, or under perpetual original Arabic title, Kitab al-Asis, is a fictional grimoire, appearing in stories by the horror writer H.P. Lovecraft and his followers. It contains an account of the Old Ones. Who are the Old Ones? The list of entities, fictional entities. However, like I explained in this book, they become then something real in the hands of magicians like Michael Aquino, like Genesis P-Orridge. In this book, Volume 8 of my Confessions, for those who have it, To the Sound of the Devil and the Great Reset, we can go at page here. Let me show you exactly where. At page 355, and you can see it says here, and I'm quoting my own book, because there was, of course, also the involvement of William Burroughs after. So this imaginative freedom had created more intersection between Satanism and chaos magic than any other area of the occult. The alien gods imagery of Cthulhu mythos created by H.P. Lovecraft are among the demonic entities most often found in chaos magic literature. In this context, influenced both by the writings of the famous initiates Alistair Crowley and Kenneth Grant, subsequently appointed honorary member of this real secret society, which manifested from the pages of H.P. Lovecraft, because the esoteric order of the Dagon became a real order. And I talk here about it. It was a group that, as can be deduced from the adopted name, drew parallels between the imaginary demons of Lovecraft and those which Crowley claimed to have evoked. Their motto is Crowley's "Do What Thou Wilt." The founder of the Temple of Set, Michael Aquino, linked to the CIA MK Ultra project, has also served in the ranks of the EOD. And on top of this, I would cite another thing regards from the book Lucifer Rising of the Satanic priest Kevin Badley, who is also a journalist from Channel 4, or used to be. It says here that much, and here it talks about the practices of this group. Much of the group's works are relatively benign, dedicated to dream interpretation and ritual magic. However, beneath the surface, the esoteric order of Dagon nurses a more ominous apocalyptic ethos. From day to day, the probability grows that increasing repressive social structure, here I'm quoting from their own teachings, of Western civilization will crush and destroy all expression of true will. When it collapses completely, the EOD, the esoteric order of Dagon, will welcome the return of the elder gods from beyond the abyss, and with them breed a new race. This is the aeon of Cthulhu rising. So here is the explanation also, and let me see another important element, because now we have to connect it with President Donald J. Trump. In volume 7 of my Confessions, which is from the Occult Roots of the Great Reset to the Populist Roots of the Great Reject, I explain one thing about, apart from showing certain symbols and elements, I say here that apart from the concept of chaos magic, which I explain more thoroughly and everything, I also explain how Trump's the possibility he might, and I'm quoting here a book published in February 2022, Trump, he might be a chaos magician of sorts working in disguise for the dark side, because his very practice of chaos magic that suggests to his practitioners saying outrageous things as part of his shock tactics approach to enhancing personal power. Chaos magic, also spelled chaos magic, is can be spelled with a K at the end or without a K at the end, is a contemporary magic practice present within certain Illuminati groups like the Illuminati of Thanateros, aside from the esoteric order of Dagon. And I explain other things here in volume 7. But the connection with between chaos magic and which then thrived from the 1970s onwards, eventually they initiated also William Burroughs, who was, by the way, very inspirational towards the whole movement. The guy who started to practice this chaos magic was somebody who claimed he was going through the magic of Abramelin the Mage, this very particular grimoire that Crowley also was said to have finished, a grimoire that takes many, I also practice this grimoire, takes many months to fulfill the domination of this demonic world. I describe parts of it in volume 3 of my Confessions. Anyway, we might go more on it when we start my new series next week with the new year. However, we are now discussing the Necronomicon, which, like I said, started as a fictional book, but then manifested as more and more within the occult milieu. Trump was into the prosperity gospel, but here we will be citing Gary Lanchman, The Dark Star, Magic and Power in the Age of Trump, because Trump was, of course, involved with the power of positive thinking. He was involved with Norman Vincent Peale, who, through his father mainly. So, because he played, this is how a certain kind of magic entered Trump's life. Okay, so the Peale played, and here I quote Gary Lanchman, who is another member of the OTO, Peel played a large role in Trump's life. His parents attended Peel's services at the Marble College Church in New York, Fifth Avenue, and Trump himself was a familiar face among the parishioners there for more than 50 years. I repeat, more than 50 years. And Trump was married to his first wife, Ivanka, Ivanka Trump. He married her in the church of this gentleman, who, and rumor had it that he met his second wife, the model Maria Maples, there too. Trump denied this, but he did admit to seeing Maria at the services often. In any case, his marriage to Maria was performed in the church by Peel's successor, the Reverend Arthur Caliandro. Why is very important, this element? Because Peel and this particular church were part of the New Thought movement. And the New Thought movement was in itself the guy who we mentioned was connected to Trump, the guy who, Norman Vincent Peale. He told the readers of The Power of Positive Thinking, something that, of course, will give you an idea of what Trump was following, but also is important because the Norman Vincent Peale had a lot of knowledge about magic, about the occult, and he synthesized this occult knowledge within The Power of Positive Thinking. Now, let me cite you here a passage from Norman Vincent Peale. Believe in yourself, I'm quoting him. Have faith in your abilities. Self-confidence leads to self-realization and successful achievement. Believe in yourself and release your inner powers. Formulate and stamp indelibly on your mind a mental picture of yourself as succeeding. And of course, you can see reflected also in Trump's work and in Trump's books, like The Art of the Deal, the teachings that I'm talking here about. Now, a peaceful mind generates power. This is one of the ideas. Expect the best and get it. I don't believe in defeat. These are the things that have, in a way, formed, plasmed, crafted the mindset of Donald J. Trump. Prayer power is very important for Peale. We can say it's the central idea behind all his work. The Power of Positive Thinking is full of testimonials from people about the power of prayer to solve any problem or remove any obstacle. For Peale, prayer is a manifestation of energy. This is all very important because I wanted to explain a little bit this connection now with the occult and Donald J. Trump. Okay, so Peale was, and here let me see if I find an image of Vincent Peale, so who was, by the way, born and raised in Ohio. Let me see if I find the picture. And who was extremely influenced in the life of Trump. Here we have him. Let me see, put him here. Okay, so this is him. You can also find him here. Okay, so we said that prayer is power. We say that he had connections with the occult, and now I will explain them to you. Peale was familiar with the occult current in New Thought, and he condensed much of its info into a new, simple formula. Along with the general rule of thinking positively, of keeping good, healthy, and success-oriented thoughts, in one head, he proposed a more direct, specific approach. Its 3 steps call us to prayerize, picturize, and actualize. Fundamentally, this is a way of visualizing a desired outcome with enough conviction to make it come to pass. To prayerize for Peel means to keep the problem or concern constantly in mind, talking it over with God, the source of prayer power, as one goes about one's days. It's unclear if Peel knew that this seems a variant of the Russian Orthodox Jesus prayer or prayer of the heart, in which, as St. Paul advised in Thessalonians, one is pray without ceasing. In Peel's version, though, this unceasing prayerizing God becomes present to us, and his presence finally comes to dominate one conscious and unconscious mind. Now, picturizing is visualizing, what Peel calls a realizable wish. And to tell you the truth, it's very much like what a magician does, the imago, because magic comes from the word imago, which means an image that needs to be materialized. And the magician materializes its image through his will and then hopes to materialize it in the material world through his imprint in the spiritual world. The new thought current is, like I said, connected to the occult. This is not speculation from my side. It's simply a fact. So this is the connection. The New Thought movement that was a new religious movement that manifested in the early 19th century, that mixed elements from the ancient Greek, Roman, Egyptian, Chinese, Taoist, Hindu, Buddhist cultures. And on top of that, they were also very much connected to the beliefs of animal magnetism, of mesmerism, of what we have discussed in the past here in my show. If you go and check, I did a whole show on arcane revelations based on the work of Franz Mesmer. So it's this guy here who apparently was highly influential for the birth of the New Thought movement, Phineas Parkhurst Wimby, who died in 1866 and was an American folk healer, mentalist, and mesmerist. His work is widely recognized as the foundation of the New Thought spiritual movement, which then in turn was the one that influenced, as we just said, Norman Vincent Peale, that then became, of course, enormously influential in the life of Donald J. Trump, who was introduced to him, of course, through his father, and then this idea of the New Thought, though, was already there, had been there for decades. And in fact, even Peale had his own radio show since 1935, who he conducted all the way till the middle of the 80s, until he died, basically. And it was a very important way of spreading this new concept. So the fact that Donald Trump was involved in a brand, let's say, of Christianity that was, though, very much connected to the occult is pretty clear, because Trump was hearing all these sermons at the Marble Collegiate Church. He went there for many decades, and he also seemed to have absorbed all the teachings of Peale's own self-confidence in his own work. So the way that we now have these elements of occultism, but also chaos magic, might not be totally known to the majority of people, because the majority of people says, okay, what does Trump has nothing to do with this or that. No, Trump follows a current, which if we go and follow, actually, if we go all the way back to the roots of the New Thought movement, we can see that is the classical theosophical occultish background that goes all the way to Eliphas Levi. In fact, here in this book by Gary Lenchman, you have also, it says, like much New Thought chaos magic, and there's a comparison here with chaos magic, is rooted in 19th century occultism. We can place its start in the work of the not always reliable French occultist Eliphas Levi, born in Paris in 1810. His real name was Alphonse Louis Constant. We know, so I mean, I talk about this many times in my book, so I will not repeat it now. We might maybe talk about him when I do my series on the Illuminati Confessions. But like I said, there is definitely a connection between the Trumps who is absorbed in the doctrine of positive thinking from Norman Vincent Peale and chaos magic that seems to come to him rather naturally. And of course, now we see the consequences of it all. At the same time, the Necronomicon and the work that has been done initially through a fictional grimoire has manifested in the real work of many occultists who have picked up from these fictional elements and manifested something different. In fact, one book in particular, which defines these practices, is the Pseudo-Necronomicon, which has the symbol of chaos magic, because that is the symbol of chaos magic. And I have also written in my book and also published, by the way, in volume 7, I cited that. But if you want to know more about the way that chaos magic also has been used in the war in Ukraine, it's you can read these articles on my website. I go way back to 2022. Let me show you here a second. There is an article that I published in March 2022, 10 Signs the War in Ukraine is part of the Great Reset. Then we have also this unprecedented clash between Ukraine and Russian and the secret of Russian. This is very important also. And there is, I think, also other articles which I cite also the involvement directly of the Illuminati of Thanateros, who have been operating for decades in Ukraine. So the Illuminati of Thanateros were created by the people who created chaos magic. Chaos magic is a modern, postmodern occult practice that treats belief simply as a tool. So you can focus on this tool, whatever symbolical system or techniques might work, you might adopt them. So it's not so rigid in the dogmas of the deities. That's why the chaos magic started to use also fictional deities. Fictional deities like the ones that, of course, were created by H.P. Lovecraft. And in 1976-77, the first chaos magic organization was came out, and is the Illuminati of Thanateros, known as the IOT. And these people have fought also on behalf of the left, and they have been very active in the way they have tried to bring together this modern form of occultism to the masses in various ways. It was a guy also in this situation, we have, like I said, also the involvement of Kenneth Grant, who has studied with both Crowley and also Osman Spare, had introduced elements of H.P. Lovecraft's Cthulhu mythos into his own magical writings. There was a trend for chaos magicians to perform invoking or otherwise dealing with entities from Lovecraft works, such as the Great Old Ones, and, for example, published the Pseudo-Necronomicon, a book of Lovecraftian rites. So there is always been, magic can be also something that enters the realm of fiction, but at the same time, fiction can manifest through magic. So the world of signs, of symbol, of the Cthulhu madness, each god brings his own madness to the equation of these magicians. To know the god in question is to be accepted by him. The high priest of these great old ones might have been a fiction at the time of H.P. Lovecraft, but then it manifests into a real high priest. People like, for example, Genesis P-Orridge, like I explained in volume 8 of my Confessions, went on also to become very important cultural, iconic, magical, and cultural figures of the music world. Like in 1988, we had the acid house scene in Great Britain, which gave birth to the first raves. Well, Genesis P-Orridge was spreading this knowledge of chaos magic amongst these people. So the actual music, the industrial or acid house or other forms of underground music were heavily affected by this form of culture, which also propagated. Nowadays, you see all these young people with a bunch of tattoos or piercings and all that. It was these people from the chaos magic, from the various secret societies involved with chaos magic, who spread that form, those things. The fact that they had to have all these tattoos, these piercings, it became, so unlike most magical entities, the mythos of these old ones is relatively, it's particular, but it's also it's classic of that magical exploration that then you find in the power of dreams, in the participation to the Sabbath, scrying, shape-shifting, the mythos of these magicians who were simply marrying a new Cthulhu mythos bunch of entities that never existed until then, if not in the mind of H.P. Lovecraft, suddenly come out at the fringes of our civilization to give birth to chaos magic. And chaos magic, the core principle of this chaos magic is that continued deployment of antinomian techniques, which are, by the way, also the antinomian element is the element of the Sabbatean Frankist, because let's not forget that we could even describe antinomianism, the Cthulhu mythos magic, and the techniques that have been used as the last development of what the Sabbatean Frankists did through the Asian Brethren, then the Ordo Templi Orientis, and then, of course, the disciples of the Ordo Templi Orientis, like Kenneth Grant, including these elements of the Cthulhu mythos to assist in the process, and most magically used entities who they sacrifice, who they divine to, who they think they are in somehow, for them, these entities believe that the humans are useful insects, nothing more. And these useful insects So in the mind of these occultists, these entities are not thinking of us as great creatures, but simply as insects. And they have, of course, there is various stages in the process of this magical working with these entities. And Kenneth Grant, of course, worked with more recently with that, Linda Falorio, Michelin Linden, and these are all people from the modern occult milieu that wanted to worship these great old ones who are these extra-dimensional entities that bring them in uncharted territory and creates this new system from these entities that, like I said, might have been out of the fiction, but then the Necronomicon tends to become more and more realistic, more and more real in their eyes. Cthulhu and all the various deities, the great ones, become very powerful once the egregor, the thought form of this collective group of people tends to give them energy. Let me show you here. There was, if I can find it again, this image of Genesis P-Origin when he was still a man before he transformed himself in the last years of his life. And one of the symbols of the Temple of Psychic Youth, the typical, you see, he was going around like this in the 80s, full of tattoos or piercings or things like you have nowadays, reflected in most contemporary millennials and people from the latest generations who, of course, they don't know where this trend started, but it started from there. And of course, people would say, but this guy was the one of the best friends of Anton LaVey. He was also connected to Michael Aquino. He was himself a member of the esoteric order of Dagon, and he was also connected, like I said, with William Burroughs. So there is then a direct connection, like I said, directly with between Aleister Crowley in a way and this latest development of his diableries. And I was, of course, I came to be connected with William Burroughs and Brian Geisen through my grandmother, who used to be their public relations. Maybe we will talk more about it in another episode. But they were all very influential from the psychedelic movement that we had in the 60s till the 1980s, and what later became the acid house scene. There is, and then that manifested into the techno scene and so on. There is a connection all the way there, and these great old ones that H.P. Lovecraft created out of his fantasy, in a way, out of his stories that were published back in the 1920s and 30s, became something much more real and genuine in the hands of these occultists. So I hope that people who are following me today understand that Necronomicon was always a fictional grimoire. It wasn't a real book, but it then manifested as something real through these disciples of Aleister Crowley, who picked up on the work of H.P. Lovecraft, and they developed it in a variety, in various ways, including also in the entertainment world, because today Cthulhu definitely is rising through all the various connections that they are in science fiction, on TV. I mean, there is a lot of works that have been influenced. Let me show you, just before we close down today's episode of the Leo Zagami Show, which will be also the last for the year 2025. with all these works, novel and stories influenced by H.P. Lovecraft's Cthulhu, and we see also Stephen King, we see also other important, Colin Wilson with the Philosopher's Stone. You see, there is, and then we have comics, a bunch of comics influenced by H.P. Lovecraft's Cthulhu mythos, and we have films, a bunch of films. I mean, that go back all the way from 1963 till now. I mean, there is a list of films that is never ending. And we could also add to all these, which clearly reference to H.P. Lovecraft, also the ones that are inspired by H.P. Lovecraft. In that case, there will be an infinite list. And you have music, of course, which is influenced by all this. So extremely influential in today's culture. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Hope you liked my excursion into the Necronomicon, in the connections with Donald J. Trump through the New Thought movement and the age of chaos magic, which seems to be upon us, and we are living every day more and more. So if you want to continue to support us, you can do it, of course, with my books. Today I've cited my latest book, The Rise and Fall of Frankie's Monster, but I also cited volume 7 and volume 8 of my Confessions. I see you next week. We will start a new year with a new format that will be dedicated to the 20 years of Illuminati Confessions, which started in 2006 on the web, but then were first published in Japan from 2009, and later also published in Europe and then in the United States, where they still strive here in 2025, and in 2026 we celebrate 20 years. I repeat, 20 years of Illuminati Confessions, 20 years of Leo Zagami exposing the New World Order disorder and those groups and secret societies we commonly refer to as the Illuminati. Please share this video, put like, and continue to support us through the donations like Sean Rose, Margot Rosada Minta, Daniel Estes did today. If you want to join them, you can join them also anonymously. If you don't want to be mentioned amongst the sponsors, you simply write a note and say, I don't want to be mentioned, because I know there is people also who might not want to be mentioned. In any case, I see you next week with the new format. Christy and I wish you a happy New Year's Eve, a happy 2026. Enjoy, guys. It's not going to be an easy year. It's not going to be an easy year. So stay tuned. Not bad. And this is Vincenzo Viceversa's Medieval.
In that time, our world has taken so many steps in the wrong direction.
And check out for the latest articles leozagami.com.
In the negative utopia, science, technology, social organization, dehumanization. In the negative utopia, science, technology, social organization. technology, social organization, dehumanization.
Of course, we will offer you the predictions for 2026 at the beginning of the year.
Utopia, technology, social organization.